The U.S. Supreme Court ruled in favor, 7 the majority to 2 against, of a military veteran whose name is James Rudisill. Supreme Court justices about this GI Bill case that ruled against, I'd like to point out, are Clarence Thomas, shocker, I know, and Samuel Alito. And when I say shocker, sarcasm. The majority opinion in the Supreme Court was written by the ruling Justice Jackson. Justice Jackson said that Rudisill should have been able to utilize all 48 months of college benefits that he earned, and that did not happen. He's quoted as saying, Justice Jackson, "The bottom line is this: veterans who separately accrue benefits under both the Montgomery and post 9/11 GI Bills are entitled to both benefits." The plaintiff's attorney for Rudisill were saying something like 1.7 million military veterans are estimating should become eligible for this benefit. The Montgomery GI Bill, so additional benefits, not just the post 9/11 GI Bill. However, the VA, Friends of the Veterans, they were saying that they estimate only like 30,000 are going to be eligible. So you already see this like situation where the VA is basically going to be fighting against the military community, and is showing how self-serving of an institution the VA is, with the different comments their lawyers have made previously as well, and just kind of par for the course with the VA. Shocker. There's been a lot of support for the Supreme Court's decision to go in favor of the military community, of the military veterans that are eligible for this benefit, by multiple politicians, attorney generals from 38 other states of both sides of the political spectrum, which is unique. And I really didn't know how the Supreme Court ruling was going to go, because the Supreme Court is clearly unreliable, and I have a lot of thoughts on the Supreme Court. I don't like the Supreme Court, honestly. I was actually pleasantly surprised to hear about this ruling, and it is good news. I paid into the Montgomery GI Bill back in 2008. And I remember it switched over to the post 9/11 GI Bill shortly thereafter that, when I was still in the service and active duty. And I remember thinking, and I wasn't the only one who kind of brought up, like, what happened with that money that we paid into it? And of course, the VA never mentions that. And I thought, well, surely we would get like a refund or something, but it was never brought up at all. In fact, it was never brought up ever again, except that you're going to use one or the other, and you had to like make a decision by, I was told, a certain date when I was in. There was no real discussion about it, but the post 9/11 GI Bill, from what I was told, you don't have to pay into it, unlike the Montgomery GI Bill. And so it's like there's this group of veterans like me who were required to pay into it if they wanted to have that as an option after military service was over or whatnot. And then we did, and then there was just like, you basically got hoodwinked out of this money, is what it boils down to. The VA decided to keep it in their pockets, or whoever receives the money, I don't know. But the VA attorneys, one of their arguments was, oh, this can cost so much money. And it's so bizarre to me how these federal institutions are so self-serving. Like, they're supposed to serve the American people, but like instead, many of these federal agencies, like the VA, are clearly very self-serving, and their Office of General Counsel, which are their attorneys, demonstrate that again and again and again with their commentary. And their commentary on this case has been no different. And the reason it ended up in Supreme Court, I've been following this case for years now, is because it was going back and forth. It was like the one side, the military veteran, would win about the GI Bill benefits that he was trying to obtain and arguing he'd earned. And then the other side, the VA, the Office General Counsel, which, by the way, you, the taxpayers, pay for all of this, were fighting against him on your dime. And then they would win at the lower courts. And so there was this back and forth and back and forth. And now it obviously went to the Supreme Court. That's supposed to be the final decision, against 7 justices in favor, 2 against. The ones that were against the military community were Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito. It says that, the task for the VA will be to figure out how to make whole all the veterans who were previously shortchanged. However, the VA still appears, based upon their statements from their attorneys, to be trying to fight against this ruling. And this is like the final decision, or at least it's supposed to be. But yet there they are. And I also like to bring up to anyone who's listening to this video right now that the post 9/11 GI Bill benefits have been cut. Evidently that happened in 2016. It also happened around, I want to say around the time I was getting out of the military, 2012 roughly, approximately. Because the GI Bill had only been around a couple of years at that point, the post 9/11 GI Bill. And when I went to use it, I was accepted into elite university. That was actually a part of college admission scandal as well. And I wasn't able to go there because basically the GI Bill would no longer cover it because the benefits have been cut to the post 9/11 GI Bill. And the school, the elite institution, refused to pay the difference. So instead of being in debt for the rest of my natural life, I chose to go to a no-name, public, middle of nowhere school for the degree program and completed it. But the problem is I would have been benefited by going to the institution. Honestly, the network probably would have helped me, as well as some different innovative perks of the program that they had to offer. So the post 9/11 GI Bill, right out the gate pretty much was being cut for people like me that tried to use it. It is very extremely challenging benefit to maximize and not just throw away, but actually utilize in a really good fashion. And it was cut again, I was reading in 2016, the last number of days, and I checked my benefits and another veteran close to me checked their benefits, and the housing stipend that we were supposed to be eligible for was cut again. And so the inflation has gone up, the value of the dollar has gone down, but our benefits continue to be cut at the educational level for the post 9/11 GI Bill. And we have the VA fighting against us at every single turn regarding its educational benefits on the taxpayers' dollars that pay for their lawyers. So this is the great federal government that we're working with here. And I think to myself, I really want this kind of information to be on recruiting posters and on recruiting commercials about the baiting and switching for service members in the military community and their family members again and again, because there's not enough people talking about that. So one of the news articles I'm reading right now is a Chicago Sun-Times, and the title of it is Supreme Court Ruling in GI Bill Case Could Force VA to Give More Than 1 Million Vets Greater College Benefits. Of course, the VA disagrees with that title as well, as I stated before. Another news article that I'm referencing is the Military Times, came out one day ago. That is Supreme Court rules in favor of veteran who sued over GI Bill limits. The Chicago Sun-Times article was published 12 hours ago. So I'm about to reference the Associated Press news article that was also published approximately one day ago on April 16th, 2024. The title of this one is Supreme Court Gives Some Military Veterans More Generous Educational Benefits. I hate the word generous because I know when I was in service, I was paid so little. I was actually looking for a second job to make ends meet. And the politicians are talking about cutting compensation, the money that I was paid in my paycheck, even further while I was on active duty. That didn't pass, fortunately. So, when you pay people poverty wages and then bait and switch their benefits after service, I don't call that generous. The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs is quoted. They're paraphrasing here in the Associated Press article, and then they're also quoted. It says his lawyers, the plaintiff, said the decision could affect roughly 1.7 million veterans, but the VA disputed that. The number is, quote, anything close, end quote, to 1.7 million, and noting that his lawyers didn't identify any other cases that presented the same issue. I'm actually really happy that the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs Office of General Counsel attorneys are showing their true colors, because this is the type of, as Justice Jackson said, nonsensical, which I love that word in the order, the ruling that she said, nonsensical. This isn't the same nonsensical nonsense I dealt with when I was dealing with whistleblower retaliation, that book right back there that I wrote about this, from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, Veterans Health Administration. And these are the kinds of nonsensical arguments that they make against people that actually are making valid points and are logical. And they're doing it all on your tax time. Another news article that I'm going to be referencing is from Newsweek, published April 16, 2024, so that's yesterday. The title is Clarence Thomas Calls Veterans' Arguments Especially Unconvincing. That's a direct cut. He's quoted as stating that the argument from the military veterans lawyers, the plaintiff in this lawsuit against the VA about this topic is, quote, especially unconvincing. Clarence Thomas, there you have it. everything you need to know about that guy. There's also some language in the Task and Purpose article, which was published April 16, 2024. The Supreme Court, is the title, sides with Army veteran and overlapping GI Bill benefits cases. There's some language about 6 years of enlisted service or something like that. I really don't know what they're talking about. I know that I was required to pay into it, and the baiting and switching of people joining the military and their families are subjected to is absolutely outrageous. Like, they should not have been charging people that money if they had no intention of giving the money back to them or letting them utilize the benefit that was assured to them underneath the payment of that money. And I'm one of those people that falls into that category. And so I don't know how this is going to play out. And clearly the VA doesn't want to cooperate. They've already made that clear with statements from their lawyers, from the Office of General Counsel about this topic. So I feel very negatively, even though the Supreme Court ruling is very positive and symbolically it's a huge win. I just don't know in reality how it's going to play out when you have an organization that's in charge of administering benefits that ultimately it does not seem that they want to administer. I just don't know how that's going to work in real life. So U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs is really a self-serving institution like I've talked about in that book back there, Veterans Affairs Whistleblower Retaliation. You can learn more at womanmilitaryveteran.com. The Veterans Health Administration, what I learned about it was that all the money that goes into it is really, a lot of it's benefiting these government employees and their managers. Specifically, the managers make a lot of money, especially in bonuses. I talk about that in that book too, Veterans Affairs Whistleblower Retaliation. And the problem is that, there is the AFG union that they have. It really needs to go away. We really need at-will employment and get rid of federal civil service system, because it's really serving everyone but the taxpayers and everyone but the military community. And, honestly, the comments from the Office of General Counsel, the lawyers for the VA, prove that even further. So I'll be keeping tabs on what happens next. Many military veterans do not even utilize the GI Bill. In fact, almost half of them never utilize their benefits. There's time limits on some of these benefits. And honestly, I feel like all the benefits have time limits on them because I'm always just waiting for the politicians to cut the benefits and eliminate them, because there are many people that are in favor of that are in positions of power, that are billionaires, and that are politicians. And for those people, I'd like to tell them to go fight their own wars that they like to create and stop trying to recruit people. The GI Bill is the fact that the benefit really should be more discretionary of how the veteran wants to use it. So if they want to use the money for a business or for their own personal use, I feel like they should be able to, and it shouldn't be directed at these higher education institutions, which, let's be honest, are just businesses at the end of the day.